Now let's discuss about the equality. So in equality chapter, what will we discuss? What is equality? Chapter is about the concept of equality of value that is also enshrined in our constitution. And reflecting on this concept, it examines the following questions: what is equality, why should we be concerned about this moral and political ideal, and does the pursuit of equality involve treating everyone the same way in every condition, and how may we pursue equality and minimize inequality in different spheres of life. How do we distinguish, guys, between different dimensions of equality, political, economic, and social? In the course of understanding and answering these questions, you would encounter some important ideologies of our time: socialism, Marxism, liberalism, and feminism. In this chapter, you will see facts and figures about the conditions of inequality, and these are only for you to appreciate the nature of inequality. The facts and figures need not be memorized. And then उसके बाद next step क्या है? Why does equality matter? So equality is a powerful moral and political ideal that has inspired and guided human society for many centuries, and it is implicit in all the faiths and religions which proclaim all human beings to be the creation of God. As a political ideal, the concept of equality invokes the idea that all human beings have an equal worth regardless of their color, gender, race, or nationality, and it maintains that human beings deserve equal considerations and respect because of the common humanity. It is this notion of a shared humanity that lies behind, for instance, the notions of universal human rights or crime against humanity. In the modern period, the equality of all the human beings has been used as a rallying slogan in the struggles against states and social institutions which uphold inequalities of rank, wealth, status, or privilege among the people. And in the 18th century, the French revolutionaries used the slogan liberty, equality, and fraternity to revolt against the landed feudal aristocracy and the monarchy. This demand of equality was raised during anti colonial liberation struggles in Asia and Africa during the 20th century. It continues to be raised by struggling groups such as women or Dalits who feel marginalized in our society. And today, equality is a widely accepted ideal which is embodied in the constitutions and laws of many countries. Yet, it is inequality rather than equality which is most visible around us in the world as well as within our own society. In our country, we can see slums existing side by side with luxury houses. Schools with world class facilities and air conditioned classrooms, along with the schools which may lack even drinking water facilities or toilets, waste of food, as well as starvation. And there are glaring differences between what the law promises and what we see around us. Read the accompanying fact sheet on the global inequalities and the table on the equalities within our country. And everyone I know believes in a religion. Every religion I know preaches equality. Then why is there inequality in the world? And search for the quotations from the different religious scriptures that affirm the ideal of equality. Read these in the classroom. Now fact sheet on the global inequalities. The richest 50 individuals in the world have a combined income greater than that of the poorest 40 crore people, and the poorest 40% of the world's population receive only 5% of global income, while the richest 10% of the world's population controls 54% of the global income. And the first world of the advanced industrial countries, mainly in North America and Western Europe, with 25% of the world's population, owns 86% of the world's industry and consumes 80% of the world's energy. On a per capita basis, a resident of the advanced industrial countries consumes at least 3 times as much water, 10 times as much energy, 13 times as much iron and steel, and 14 times as much paper as sometimes living in a developing countries like India or China. The risk of dying from pregnancy related causes is 1 to 18 in Nigeria, but 1 to 8,700 in Canada. The industrial countries of the first world account for nearly two-thirds of the global emissions of the carbon dioxide from the combustion of fossil fuels. They also account for three-quarters of emissions of sulfur and nitrogen oxide that cause acid rain. Many industries known for their high rate of pollution are being shifted from the developed countries to the less developed countries. Now, next is here economic inequalities in India. So, here are some findings from the census of India held in 2011 about households, amenities, and assets. And you don't need to memorize any of these figures, just read these to understand the extent of urban rural disparities in the country. Where would your own family fit? Families that have like electricity connection, tap water in the house, bathroom in the house, television, scooter, moped, a motorcycle, car, jeep, van, etc. रूरल फैमिलीज अर्बन फैमिलीज पुट यस और नो फॉर योर फैमिली. ठीक है, उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है, वाई टॉक अबाउट ग्लोबल और नेशनल इनइक्वालिटीज वन ऑल अराउंड अस देयर आर इनइक्वालिटीज टू विच नो बडी सीम्स टू ऑब्जेक्ट. जस्ट लुक एट द वे माई पेरेंट्स फेवर माई ब्रदर ओवर मी. Thus we face a paradox. Almost everyone accepted the ideal of equality, yet almost everywhere we encounter inequality. We live in a complex world. Unequal wealth opportunities, works situations, and power. Should we be concerned about these kind of inequalities? Are they permanent and inevitable feature of social life which reflects the differences, talent, and ability of human beings, as well as the different contributions towards social progress and prosperity? Or are these inequalities a consequences of our social positions and rules? And these are questions have troubled people all over the world for the many years. It is a question of this kind that makes equality one of the central themes of the social and political theories. A student of political theory has to address a range of questions such as what does equality implying? Since we are different in many obvious ways, what does it mean? What does it mean to say that we are equal? What are we trying to achieve through the ideal of equality? Are we trying to eliminate all differences of income and status? In other words, what kind of equality are we pursuing, and for whom? And some other questions that have been raised regarding the concept of equality, which we will consider here, are: to promote equality, should we always treat all persons in exactly the same way? How should a society decide which differences of treatment or reward are acceptable and which are not? Also, what kind of policies should we pursue to try and make the society more egalitarian? What is equality? Take a look at these images. Colored served in rear, drinking fountain white and hair colored, and restrooms white only, and all of them make distinctions between human beings on the grounds of race and color, and these appear to most of us as unacceptable. In fact, such distinctions violate our initiative understanding of equality, which tells us that all human beings should be entitled to the same respect and consideration because of their common humanity. And however, treating people with equal respect need not mean always treating them in identical way. No society treats all its members in exactly the same way under all conditions, and the smooth functioning of the society requires divisions of works and functions, and people often enjoy different status and rewards on account of it. At times, these differences of treatment may appear acceptable or even necessary. For instance, we usually do not feel that giving prime ministers or army generals a special official rank and status goes against the notion of equality, provided their privileges are not misused. But some other kinds of inequalities may seem unjust. For instance, if a child born in slum is denied nutritious food or good education through no fault of his or her own, it may appear unfair to us. The question that arises is which distinctions and differences are acceptable and which are not. When people are when people are treated differently just because they are born in a particular religion or race or caste, gender, we regard it as an unacceptable form of inequality. And human beings may pursue different ambitions and goals, and all may be equally successful so long as they are able to develop best in themselves. We would not feel that equality has been undermined. Some may become good musicians, while others may not be equally outstanding. Some become famous scientists, while others are more noted for their hard work and consciousness. And the commitment to the ideal of equality does not imply the elimination of all the forms of differences. It merely suggests that the treatment we receive and the opportunities we enjoy must not be predetermined by the birth or social circumstances. Now, next is equality of opportunities. So, the concept of equality implies that all the people as human beings are entitled to the same rights and opportunities to develop the skills and talents and to pursue their goals and ambitions. And this means that in the society, people may differ with regard to their choice and preferences. They may also have different talents and talents and skills, and which results in some being more successful in their chosen careers than the others. But just because only some become ace cricketers or successful lawyers, it does not follow that the society should be considered unequal. In other words, it is not the lack of equality of status or wealth or privilege that is significant, but the inequalities in the people's access to such basic goods as education, healthcare, safe housing that make for an unequal and unjust society. उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट है वो क्या है? नेक्स्ट इज नेचुरल एंड सोशल इनइक्वालिटी. Theory between natural inequalities and socially produced inequalities. Natural inequalities are those that emerge between people as a result of their different capabilities and talents. Of inequalities are different from the socially produced inequalities, which emerge as a consequence of inequalities of opportunity or the exploitation of some groups in the society by the others. Men are superiors to the women. It is natural inequality. You can't do anything about it. I get more marks than you in every subject, and I also help my mother in housework. What makes you superior? Here they are fighting. And उसके बाद जो next है वो क्या है? Natural inequalities are considered to be the result of different characteristics and abilities with which people are born. It is generally assumed that natural differences cannot be altered. Social inequalities, on the other hand, are those created by the society. Certain societies may be, for instance, value those who perform intellectual work over those who do manual works and reward them differently. They may treat differently people of different race or color or gender or caste. Differences of this kind reflect the values of a society, and some of these may certainly appear to us to be unjust. This distinction is sometimes useful in helping us to distinguish between acceptable and unfair inequalities in the society, but it is not always clear or self-evident. For instance, when certain inequalities in the treatment of people have existed over a long period of the time, and they may appear to us as justifiable because they are based on the natural inequalities, that is, characteristics that people are born with the cannot with the, and cannot easily change. For example, women's were for long described as the weaker sex, considered timid and of lesser intelligence than the men, needing special protection. Therefore, it was felt that denying women equal rights could be justified. Black people in Africa were considered by their colonial masters to be of lesser intelligence, childlike and better at manual work, sports and music. This belief was used to justify the institutions like slavery. All these assessments are now questioned, and seen as a they are now seen as distinctions made by the society as a result of the differences of the power between the people and the nations rather than based on their inborn characteristics. Another problem which arises with the idea of natural differences that some differences which could be considered natural need no longer be seen as unalterable. For instance, advances in the medical sciences, technologies have helped many disabled people to function effectively in the society. Today, computers can help the blind people, wheelchairs, artificial limbs, and can help in the cases of physical disability. Even a person looks can be changed with the cosmetic surgery. The famous physicist Stephen Hawking can hardly move or speak, but he has made major contribution to the science. It would seem unjust to most people today. Disabled people are denied necessary help to overcome the effects of the disability or a fair reward for their work on the grounds that they are naturally less capable. Given all these complexities, it would be difficult to use the naturally of socially produced distinctions as a standard by which the laws and policies of a society can be assessed. For this reason, many theorists today differentiate between the inequalities arising from our choices and inequalities operating on the account of the family or circumstances in which a person is born. It is the latter that is a source of concern to advocates of equality, and which they wish to minimize and eliminate. Now, three dimensions of equality. So, after considering what kind of social differences are unacceptable, we need to ask what are the different dimensions of equality that we may pursue or seek to achieve in the society. While identifying different kinds of inequalities that exist in the society, various thinkers and ideologies have highlighted three main dimensions of equality, namely political, social, and economic. It is only by addressing each of these three different dimensions of equality can we move towards a more just and equal society. Now, here political equality. So, in democratic societies, political equality would normally include granting equal citizenship to all the members of the state, as you will read in the chapter on the citizenship. Equal citizenship brings with it certain basic rights such as the right to vote, freedom of expression, movement and association, and freedom of belief. And these are rights which are considered necessary to enable the citizens to develop themselves and participate in the affairs of the state. But they are legal rights guaranteed by the constitution and laws. We know that considerable inequality can exist even in the countries which grant equal rights to all the citizens. And these inequalities are often the result of the differences in the resources and opportunities which are available to the citizens in the social and economic spheres. For this reason, a demand is often made for equal opportunities or for a level playing field. But we should remember that although political and legal equality by itself may not be sufficient to build just egalitarian society, it is certainly an important component of it. Now, social equality. Political equality or equality before the law is an important first step in the pursuit of equality, but it often needs to be supplemented by equality of opportunities. While the former is necessary to remove any legal hurdles which might exclude people from a voice in the government and deny them access to available social goods, and the pursuit of equality requires that people belonging to the different groups and communities also have a fair and equal chance to compete for those goods and opportunities. For this, it is necessary to minimize the effects of the social and economic inequalities and guarantee certain minimum conditions of life to all the members of the society. Adequate health care, the opportunities for the good education, adequate nourishments, and the minimum wage, among other things. In the absence of such facilities, it is exceedingly difficult for all the members of the society to compete on equal terms. Where equality of opportunities does not exist, a huge pool of potential talent tends to be wasted in the society. And India's special problem regarding the equal opportunities comes not just from the lack of facilities, but from the some of the customs which may prevail in different parts of the country or among the different groups. Women, for instance, may not enjoy equal rights of inheritance in some groups, or there may be social prohibitions regarding their taking part in the certain kinds of activities, or they may even be discouraged from obtaining higher education. The state has a significant role in such matters. It should make policies to prevent discrimination or harassment of women in the public places or employment, or to provide the incentives to open up education or certain professions to the women, and other such measures. But social groups and individuals also have a role to play, raising awareness and supporting those who want to exercise their rights. Now, next is here, inequalities in education. Are the differences in the educational attainment of different communities depicted in the table below significant? Could these differences have taken place just by chance, or do these differences point to the working of the caste system? Which factor other than the caste system do you seek at work here? Here, caste community inequalities in higher education in urban India. Here, caste safer communities जो दे रखी हैं, graduates per 1,000 person. Scheduled caste Muslims, Hindu, OBC, scheduled tribes Christian, Sikh, Hindu, upper caste, other religions. ऑल इंडिया एवरेज जो है दिया गया है यहाँ पे. नेशनल सैंपल सर्वे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो है 55th राउंड सर्वे 1999 टू 2000 टाइम पे किया था. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द इकोनॉमिक इक्वालिटी. As the simplest level, we would say that economic inequality exists in society if there are significant differences in wealth, property, and income between the individuals and the classes. One way of measuring the degree of economic inequality in the society would be to measure the relative difference between the richer and poorest groups. Another way could be to estimate the number of people who live below the poverty line. Of course, absolute equality of wealth or income has probably never existed in the society. Most democracies today try to make the equal opportunities available to the people in the belief that this would at least give those who have talent and determination the chance to improve their condition. Here, let's debate. Women should be allowed to join the combat units of the army and go up to the highest position. Here, you can see a dream deferred. Find out more about the racial inequalities in the US. Which group or groups in our country suffer from the similar inequalities? When what kind of policies have been adopted in the US to reduce this inequality? And is there something to be learned from their experiences? Can they learn something from our experience? Here we can see inequalities which are entrenched, that is which remain relatively untouched over generations, are more dangerous for a society. If in a society certain classes of people have enjoyed considerable wealth and the power which goes with it, over generations the society would become divided between those classes and others who have remained poor over generations. Over time, such class differences can give rise to resentment and violence because of the power of the wealthy classes. It may prove difficult to reform such a society to make it more open and egalitarian. इधर जो है वो क्या दिखाया गया है, फेमिनिज्म. सो फेमिनिज्म इज अ पॉलिटिकल डॉक्ट्राइन ऑफ इक्वल राइट्स फॉर द women and men. Feminists are those men and women who believe that many of the inequalities we see in the society between men and women are neither natural nor necessary and can be altered so that both women and men can lead free and equal lives. According to the feminists, inequality between the men and women in the society is the result of patriarchy, and this term refers to the social, economic, and cultural system that values men more than the women and gives man power over the women. Patriarchy is based on the assumption that men and women are different by nature and that this difference is justified their unequal positions in the society. Feminists question this way of thinking by making a distinction between the sex, that is, biological difference between the men and women, and gender, which determines the different roles and men and women play in the society. For instance, मतलब कि example, the biological fact that only women can become pregnant and bear children does not require that only women should look after the children after they are born. Feminists show us that much of the inequality between the men and women is produced by the society and not by the nature. Patriarchy produces a division of labor by which women are supposed to be responsible for the private and domestic matters, while men are responsible for the work in the public domain. Feminists questions this distinction by pointing out that in the fact that most women are always also active in the public domain, and that is most women all over the world are employed in some form of the work outside the home, and but women continue to be solely responsible for the housework as well as. However, despite this double burden, as feminists term it, women are given little or no say in the decisions taken in the public domain. Feminists contend that this public या फिर private distinction and all forms of gender inequalities can and should be eliminated. Here what we can see, make a list of all the social and economic inequalities that you notice among the students of your own school also. Here Marxism and liberalism are two important political ideologies of our times. Marx was an important 19th century thinker who argued that the root cause of the entrenched inequality was private ownership of important economic resources such as the oil or land or forest as well as the other form of property. He pointed out that such private ownership did not only make the class of owners wealthy, it also gave them political power. Such power enables them to influence state policies and also laws, and this could prove a threat to democratic government. Marxists and socialists feel that economic inequality provides support to other forms of social inequality such as differences of rank or privilege. Therefore, to tackle inequality in the society, we need to go beyond providing equal opportunities and try and ensure public control over the essential resources and forms of property. Such views may be debatable, but they have raised important issues which need to be addressed. An opposing point of view can be found in liberal theories. Liberals uphold the principle of competition as the most efficient and fair way of distributing resources and rewards in the society. They believe that while states may have to intervene to try and ensure a minimum standard of living and equal opportunities for all, this cannot by itself bring equality and justice to the society. Competition between the people in the free and fair conditions is the most just and efficient way of distributing rewards in the society. For them, as long as competition is open and free, inequalities are unlikely to become entrenched, and people will get due rewards for their talents and efforts. For liberals, the principle of competition is the most just and efficient way of selecting candidates for jobs or admissions to educational institutions. For instance, in our country, many students offer the admission to professional courses, and entry is highly competitive. From time to time, the government and the courts have stepped into to regulate educational institutions and entrance tests to ensure that everybody gets a fair and equal chance to compete. Some may still not get admission, but it is considered to be a fair way of distributing limited seats. And फिर उसके बाद जो next है वो क्या दे रखा है, socialism. Socialism refers to a set of political ideas that emerged as a response to the inequalities present in and reproduced by industrial capitalist economy. The main concern of the socialism is how to minimize existing inequality and distribute resources justly. Although advocates of socialism are not entirely opposed to the market, and they favor some kind of government regulation, planning, and control over certain key areas such as education and healthcare. In India, the eminent socialist thinker Ram Manohar Lohiya identified 5 kinds of inequalities and that need to be fought against simultaneously: inequality between men and women, inequality based on the skin color, caste-based inequality, and colonial rule of some countries over others, and of course economic inequality. This might appear a self-evident idea today, but during Lohia's time it was common for the socialists to argue that class inequality was the only form of inequality, with the worth struggling against other inequalities did not matter or would and automatically. If economic inequalities could be ended, Lohia argued that each of these inequalities had independent roots and had to be fought separately and simultaneously. He did not speak of revolution in the singular form. For him, struggle against these 5 inequalities constituted 5 revolutions. He added 2 more revolutions to this list. A revolution for the civil liberties against unjust encroachment on private life, and revolution for the non-violence for the renunciation of weapons. And in favor of the satyagraha, these were the 7 revolutions or Saptakranti, which for the Lohia was the ideal of socialism.